Hi, good morning, everyone. It's always nice to have people come out for talks. We do talks a lot during our festivals, and we're always not sure if people want to come during their free time for a talk, and it's amazing to see you guys come here so early in the morning for this, or to hear me talk this early. Like, I wouldn't even come to my own talk this early. So, thank you so much for being here. I don't, one thing that I hate doing is like really like plan out my talks because then I feel like I get really disconnected and I'm like reading or memorizing like what I want to say and hopefully like my message comes across. So I kind of like to keep it a bit loose. And I do have slides, but I may or may not even go by them too much. Um, so this month's theme is lost. And I at first was really thinking about that theme a lot, and I realized that my whole career I've been lost myself. You know, like not only just with like what I want to do, like after I graduated college, or even how to do the different things that I wanted to try to do, or even if I'm doing like my own personal work, like if I'm painting or doing a mural, sometimes I'm not even sure if I'm doing it right or if I know the direction that I'm heading in. And I think the best part of being lost is that it opens up opportunities. It opens up doors. You're able to take risk, and even sort of even being physically lost in a new city or even in the city that you know, and you discover new things. And so I think a big part of being lost is also discovery. And so I want to like talk about well, powwow, but I want to talk about sort of moments that I've been lost or things that I've done throughout my career or even when I first started doing the work and how that kind of led to this organization that we have now or even to like my own personal work outside of that. So I grew up here in Hawaii. I went to Kalani High School. We have like one from Kalani. No one wants to drive down from that way down to here in the morning. I had to like wake up super early to come here. I was like, do I leave the house at 6? Try to get here by 7:30? I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. Um, so when going to Kalani, I graduated in 2001. And at that time, like we had a smaller sort of arts curriculum. And the sad thing is that, I mean, Kalani still has a strong arts curriculum, but a lot of schools don't have them. A lot of schools cut out their arts and music programs. My daughter's elementary school, they removed all the arts curriculum like last year. So they didn't even have any at all. And growing up in Hawaii, I've always found it difficult to find or to like know where to go if you're interested and if you wanted to be an artist or what career opportunities there were. So when I was in high school, my high school counselors or college counselors didn't know like how to help me. So they told me that Lewis and Clark College in Oregon had like a really good arts program for what I wanted to do, which at the end when I went to that school, it didn't. But then I discovered that there was art colleges. But I didn't have a portfolio to sort of get into an art college. And then I learned that I didn't have to even take the SATs if I wanted to go to art college. So I wasted all that time taking the SATs because I didn't even use it really. So I had to then create a portfolio from scratch and do a bunch of still lives in my dorm room and then head out to San Francisco and do interviews. And then I got into California College of the Arts and Crafts at that time in San Francisco. At that time it was crafts, but then they removed crafts. So then halfway through, I went to a different college, and it was just California College of Arts, because they felt like the crafts part was misleading. I don't know why, but you know. But then they asked me like, oh, do you want on your diploma to be arts and crafts or just arts? So I kept the crafts part in my diploma. So I graduated with a illustration degree. I went through graphic design halfway through, and they wouldn't let me draw anything, and so then I transferred to illustration, and then when I graduated with an illustration degree with the BFA, like at that time, that's like '06. they told me that with my degree, I could do two things. One, I can illustrate for magazines, do editorial. Or two, I can do children's books. And that was sort of like my entire sort of career opportunities that were there. And I didn't even want to like do any of those things, really. So I kind of wish that they told me like ahead of time that that was sort of like my future. So maybe I would have like maybe chose a different degree, I guess. And then at that time, well, this is a postcard, I'm also from, but then at that time they also told me that the only way to get my work out there was to send my postcard around. Like that was marketing 101 back in like '06 when you graduated from art school. It's like, okay, here's your degree, you paid all this money. Now, if you want to get work, look at magazines, look up the art directors, the editors, and then print a bunch of postcards and then mail it to them in hopes that they will like your postcard and then hire you for a job. And that was like, that's all like they had. Like that's everything. That was like how to get a job and live your life. It's like postcards. It's like changed a lot since then, but that was then. And I was like, I don't know if that would work. Because can you imagine how many, if like every single school and every single department around like the country was telling all their kids to do that same thing, then like these guys get like tons of postcards. I'd just be throwing postcards away every day if I just got those in the mail like all the time. You know, it's just like, it becomes junk mail because there's no way that you stand out. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's a creepy picture. So my thing was that I wasn't interested in doing any of those things, which is tough to say because then you spend 4 years in art college and you come out hoping that there is direction, that they'll tell you what to do and that it'll directly lead into a career, but it doesn't. And that's the hard part to sort of like learn. And that's sort of like, you know, also being lost after you have your art college degree and then your BFA and then not sure what to do with that. And one thing that I was really interested in really at the end was process and was manufacturing. Because when I was in college, they taught us like technical thinking and conceptual thinking, but they didn't really teach us how to like get things made. And like if I wanted to make a shoe or a bag or a chair or anything for that matter, like what was that process? Like how do I do that? Like how do I even like, do I have to go through a publisher to make a book or can I just make a book myself? At that time they didn't have all those websites, you know, or like all these things that we have now where you can like do that. You know, that people have really opened up those doors to sort of make it more accessible to people, but back then there was nothing. Like you had to go through, you know, these people, and it wasn't even like easy making websites back then. You know, you like maybe had to know HTML or you're like Dreamweaver or something. You know, they didn't have like Squarespace and stuff. You know, it's like none of those things existed back then. So my plan was to move to Hong Kong. Hong Kong at that time, or still is, I mean, it's a gateway to China. And China is one of the manufacturing capitals of the world. So I figure, you know what, let me try to move to Hong Kong and see what happens. And, you know, that's one of the things sort of like, you know, if you're lost after graduating and not sure what to do, then trying to go to a new place and getting lost there kind of helps too, trying to figure out like what to do. So I went to Hong Kong and I didn't really know anyone. And I kind of like allowed myself to sort of like learn and be a part of that city and see what I could learn. Oh, that's me confused. It's emoji. Yeah. So yeah, so this is Hong Kong. It doesn't look like that right now, but you know, it did look like that. And I lived in Hong Kong for 4 years. So what I did when I first got to Hong Kong was, you know what, I'm going to try to just cold call people and see what I can learn, who I can meet. And when I was there, then I met the manufacturer for Ralph Lauren. I met the manufacturers for Steve Madden, for Coach. And so, you know, I went to their factories. I met the agents. They taught me like how things were done, et cetera. But at the same time, like I also learned that there was barriers of entry, right? Like if I wanted to make or work with these manufacturers, like there was minimums. And if there was minimums, then also meant that I needed more capital if I wanted to do something to start a brand. I tried starting a shoe company that failed because I didn't realize how expensive that would be. And then so I tried different things. But the thing is that like I learned a lot from meeting these people. I learned what my limitations were and what is possible and what is not possible. And then when I was living there, I ended up meeting Eugene, who at the time was the chief editor for Hypebeast magazine, if you're familiar with that. It's like a streetwear, like lifestyle magazine. And I ended up working for Hypebeast. So I kind of got like really involved more in like the fashion world for a little while, even though I'm not fashionable. And then I would meet, product managers and different people that like worked for Adidas and Nike, and I started just doing like different projects with these brands, which kind of opened up my world. And I was learning a lot more outside of art college than when I was there, in terms of, brands and how art applied to it, different things. I was doing projects at that time with Bianchi and Adidas and creating different projects and making bags and shoes and such with those companies. Rather than starting my own company, like it was learning through doing projects with them. But at the same time, like I really also wanted to continue showing my artwork. Because when I was living in San Francisco, at that time it was a really sort of art-centric city. And as a group of young people and a group of artists, we would always do art shows in like random spaces, or in galleries, but also in like abandoned shops and et cetera. And it was a way to sort of get your work validated, because social media wasn't as big of a thing then, so the only way that people saw your artwork is if you did a show, and you put up and those might be the only times that you ever have your work seen in person. And because otherwise, being an artist can be a very, like, isolated, solitary pursuit. And so I took my portfolio around because I really wanted to sort of like do art shows there, and I kept getting rejected by every single gallery that I brought my artwork to. The reason why is because they told me that I was the wrong type of Chinese. I was the wrong kind of Chinese is what they told me. That was sort of like their reasoning for why they didn't want to show my work. The one thing that you have to remember in Hong Kong, that it's a very finance-based city. So everything is based around like how much money something will make. And so people weren't really showing work of like young, emerging Hong Kong artists or anywhere because they didn't feel like they could sell the work to then pay the rent. Which makes sense. I own a couple of galleries myself, so I was like, it's hard to do that a lot of times because you want to have guaranteed sales to sort of cover your rent. Like those are the hard truths about galleries a lot of times. And so because I was American Chinese and not mainland Chinese, then they felt like there was enough potential to sell my work. So as a reaction to that, no money. So I had two options. So I could complain about my situation, or I could start my own gallery. So then I did that one. I started my own gallery. This is another thing about sort of being lost too. It's like, when you start walking around any city that you live in or that you're at, there are sometimes getting lost, you find places that might be the best fit for you. And so where I circled there is like where like the main sort of arts district is. It's Long Kwai Fong Central. Where my gallery was is like on the side, like off the map. And it's this area called Sanyingpun. And it's the area is known for dried seafood and like when Chinese people, when we like die, our family then like tries to like burn different things to like send to us in the afterlife. Like they have like they're like kind of like piñatas. And so there's like cars and Louis Vuitton bags and like people, because then you can have like ghost slaves and stuff. So, so then like it's like a whole district of like just like ghost piñatas and like dried seafood. So that's where my like gallery was. And so it was a restaurant that was abandoned for about 10 years. So they were open to sort of like having anyone do anything there. And all I did was just, paint the walls white, put some doors and windows, and then you have a gallery. And so that was like my gallery there. And the back part was like my studio. So I could work in there, and that way like I didn't care if I sold artwork because I would be paying rent for my studio. And if I did sell artwork, then it kind of like subsidized my studio space. So then I could then promote not only like my own work, but also work of friends, etc. And so we were like one of the few, maybe one of the only galleries in Hong Kong that were actually promoting local Hong Kong artists. So yeah, so the tough part about where this gallery is that there's no buses that go there. And then so you have to kind of like walk up this hill. And so then everyone would come and they'd be like super sweaty because it's kind of like a 10-minute walk up this hill. And so then you like knew that people were there for the art, you know? Like they weren't there because they knew that there was gonna be like free food at the gallery, you know, at the art walks. And so, you know, so I had the gallery there and I lived there for about 4 years. And the very first exhibition that we did there was actually the very first powwow. And originally the name came from comic books. So pow being like a punch in the face, and that's how we thought, you know, we saw the impact that art had on the viewer, and then wow being the reaction to that. But then pow together being a Native American term for a gathering to celebrate like culture, music, and art. So we kind of felt, it was kind of like the perfect name for what we were trying to do. And the very first exhibition there, the very first powwow there, we brought in artists from London, from Paris, from Taiwan, Singapore, and myself, and we all kind of like painted together. And the ideas behind, and so then the idea behind it is that, you know, one, we want to share process. So the gallery became an open studio. So people come in and they could see us work, and they could be a part of that experience. And two, we destroyed a lot of the artwork afterwards because we didn't want to create work with the idea that we had to sell it. And that maybe if we knew that the work was going to be gone and that if it was ephemeral, then if that was to happen, then we would care less about it and we would be more open to experimenting and trying different things that we never tried before. Because a lot of times what happens with us or as artists, a lot of times is that we kind of like paint ourselves into a corner, like literally, like where like we know that this type of work will sell and we know that people like it and we just like keep doing it because that's, you know, we know that that work is going to make money because we need to make money to sort of survive and live. And then we kind of like forget about being lost in the work. You know, we forget to try different things, and then you get so bored of doing the same thing over and over again. So a big part of us was just trying to like, you know, do different things and try different things and see what happens, you know, without like money as the goal at the end. So these are just some photos of us just working out of my gallery there. The guy in the pink is me. I found that thing in Japan. Then I didn't realize that was like a whole movement of people that did that. I didn't find out until like after I stopped wearing that thing. Because then I can't really wear that thing anymore because I don't have the same body anymore. I was skinnier then. What's that gallery? Yeah, okay. So after that Hong Kong exhibition, the idea was to take it somewhere else to see where we could do with the same ideas and the same themes and the same project. And I was looking at friends' galleries in like different cities, like in Berlin or Singapore, or different places. And then I was convinced to sort of bring it back to my hometown of Hawaii. It was a tougher decision at that time because I wasn't sure how it would fare. And I wasn't sure if we could find spaces and if people would even care about it. But then we said, you know what, let's see what happens. So one thing that was lacking again was funding. And that's something that we always struggle with to this day, just because we're doing a lot of projects that are free and that are for the public and that are for the community, and then we have to find ways to like raise money for that. So what happened was, as we were trying to do that first project in Hawaii, we were taking the project around and using the Hong Kong project as like a proof of concept. And we'll take it to different brands and different businesses and hoping that they would sponsor us. The issue that happened was that, one, like a lot of brands didn't feel like sponsoring an art project or a gallery show was like a good vehicle to promote their brand. And so I couldn't pull any money. But we kind of like set like a hard date of like when we would like to do the project, which was in February, and we chose February because we figure it's like slow travel season. So it'll be easier for us to find hotels, to find, flights would be cheaper. And then also, it's still winter in a lot of places around the world, and so it'd be easier to bring artists on board because maybe they would want to escape where they're from to come to Hawaii to paint. And that was the idea behind that date. But at the end, like since we couldn't find any money, like we had three options of either one, just canceling it, two, to scale it back to make it cheaper, or three, to just like go for it and see what happens. At the end, chose the last one, and what I did at the end was I paid for it with my credit card. Looking back, I was like, it's kind of a crazy move, but I think going back on it, like it was one of those things where you have to just try and see what happens. And I think a part of me felt that it wouldn't fail, because if we bring together that many people, that many creative people, and all that good energy, then something good will happen no matter what. Like even if we got rained out, like we'd still find something to do. Like people would still create and do something. So we did it, and it ended up working out well. And what ended up actually happening was that it kind of led to what we do now in Kaka'ako. So we did the first project in a warehouse, was formerly Fresh Cafe, and now it's like Waikiki Brewing. And we did the same project that we did in Hong Kong, but there was a wall in the parking lot. And we realized that doing public art and painting on a wall kind of achieved a lot of the goals that we were trying to do in Hong Kong, because one, we could share process because it's in a public place. Two, we could work together and collaborate because usually these are large-scale walls. And three, we can't sell the walls because we don't own them. We can't sell the work that's on it. So at the end, public art is ephemeral, and sometimes it stays up, sometimes it's gone, gets painted over for whatever reason, due to the weather or the building getting knocked down or whatever happens to it. And it kind of worked out. We're like, you know what, that's perfect. Like, let's keep doing public art and doing murals. So from there, these are some of the ones from the very first one. So from there, we continued we kind of then transformed into a public art project. The biggest Hawaii one, we had 120 artists painting 100 murals in a week. That was too big, because I kind of lost my mind. Was it the year that I think also that's the year that I got married too. So then I had a kid in December, then powwow happened in February, and I got married a week after powwow. And I think the reason why I did that is because in my head I thought, hey, I have all my friends in town, it'd be better to have a wedding right afterwards. But then that's actually a really bad idea, because then you're kind of so tired that you can't even focus on the wedding. And I lost my voice too. And then on that day, I got locked in the elevator for an hour. So, and then, yeah, that was a bad idea. Especially with a 2-month-old at that time too. But yeah, so since then we've scaled it back. But this first one we did 1 mural, then the year after we did 12, and then we did that big one. And then we kind of these days we kind of target around maybe 70, 80 artists. So we do around that many murals during the week. But yeah, that was this was the first one. I don't know how many you guys were there. This was back in 2011. I look at pictures of these sometimes, I'm oh, we all look so young. Yeah. Since then, we've grown since then. We now do the project in 17 cities around the world. We have around 10 to 11 festivals a year. And so then now it's kind of nonstop. I'm always working on mural festivals or mural and music festivals all the time now. But that's sort of but at the same time, that's not work that pays me. To this day, powwow is a passion project. Because at the end of the day, this kind of work that we do, when it's community beautification and community engagement, we're not charging people money to go see murals. And the amount of money that goes into it, a lot of times is it's so much money that goes into it, because for one, we need to, there's a lot of stuff that goes around, for one, lifts. You're never going to get sponsored for lifts. And lifts are going to cost you around $1 to $2 grand a week. And if we have, if we're putting up 70 murals, and maybe half of those are going to need lifts, and that's a a chunk of our budget is just like us just trying to pay for lifts. And then there's insurance, then there's housing, and then just the hard part of like, being in Hawaii where like apartments or hotel rooms are just really expensive. We have sponsors like Aloha Lani and the Modern in the past, but they don't cover like all the rooms, because if we're bringing that many people on board, because this is like the artists that we're bringing on board, but we're also flying in media, we're also flying in, like our team, like we also have like videographers and photographers. So the collective group of us all together is like it's like 100, like maybe 150 people or something. So these are the amount of people that we're sort of like taking care of and that we're trying to figure out dinners for and get-togethers and different things. And so we also started doing like art exhibitions. So this is the one that was at the Honolulu Museum of Art and the Lina Kona one. And we've been doing exhibitions there for the past few years. We've stopped doing it there. This is one that is at the Long Beach Museum of Art. And so what's been interesting is that as we're doing public artwork, we then started doing work back in the gallery. And it was a way to sort of like tie both in together. To sort of like show that, like the work that's happening on the street can also happen on canvas and in the gallery, and help to sort of, and the fact that we were doing museum shows will help to validate the work that we were doing outside. Because for a long time, doing murals, doing street art, people kind of like, we were kind of seen as lower than fine art, and so trying to bring it back into the museums kind of helped bring it full circle. This exhibition, actually, what happened with this one is that they were going to do a show. So this was the very first Powwow Long Beach. And then we were about like 3 months out, 2 or 3 months out, the museum was going to do a show with David Cho. And then David Cho dropped out like last minute for a personal reason. And so they had no show. They had no show for the summer, which is like, they're supposed to have like their big show during the summer. And then we were doing our very first Long Beach project. And so we were trying to put together 20 murals in Long Beach, and that's the first time ever doing that in that city. And we had also around 3 to 4 months to sort of put that together with like barely any budget. And so we decided to also take on doing a museum exhibition there at the same time. And I think that's sort of part of like going back to the theme of what we're talking about here is being lost, is like, hey, like none of us were, for one, like none of us were accustomed to doing work in Long Beach. And even more so, it was like none of us were accustomed to doing a big museum exhibition at the same time. But we were willing to let ourselves sort of get lost and try to figure out how to do it along the way in hopes that we can make it happen. Because if we just were like, hey, you know what, like we just can't do it, like we don't know if we can do it, we're just gonna not do it, then it just wouldn't have happened, But then because the fact that we were willing to try and see, then we made it happen. And so then this exhibition at the Long Beach Museum of Art, when we did open it, it broke all their attendance records in like the history of the museum. There was like a 4-hour line to get in. And looking back on that, it's like, like I'm glad that we were willing to take the risk and try to do it. Because then this is like a 2-story museum, so we kind of did the whole thing top, like both floors, everything. Oh. Talks and stuff. Oh yeah, and then we started doing different talks. And this is one with Fafi and Jeff Staple. And screenings. And then we started trying to do concerts, which ended up, it's really hard doing concerts. That's what I can say. It's really hard and really expensive. Yeah, so these are all just photos from like past events that we've done over the years. This one is at the Old Fisherman's Wharf, I believe. Yeah. So this one is at the Old Fisherman's Wharf, which is like just down the street. And at one point, or still is now, it's like owned by OHA. And we were able to convince them to let us put a concert on their empty lot. And so we did a concert there with The Green. We also did a concert there with Dilated Peoples and Steve Aoki and Cascade. And at that time, we were like, those outdoor concerts, even though we only did it for maybe like 2 years, it had like around like 6,000 people. So those were, that's another thing. It's like, okay, you know what, like we want to do a concert. One, and let's figure out some partners to sort of like help us do it, because we don't know how to do it. 2, let's try to ask people if we can even like use land to do a concert, which is even scarier than like, then like, no, let's go ask OHA, which is probably like, we're not even Hawaiian, and then we're going to ask them if we can use their land to like throw concerts with like Steve Aoki or something. So it was nice. It was kind of like, but then we did it, I'm sad that we couldn't continue that project just because they ended up renting it out to like for like car storage. But we're still trying to figure things out and do different things in that regard. And then here's another project that we did. So this space is called Lana Lane Studios, and it's on Lana Lane and Oahe Street, just like down there. And we started this. My thought behind this was that there needed to be almost like a community center for visual artists. And because I met a lot of artists living here in Hawaii, being back in Hawaii, that didn't have a space to work in. They couldn't have a space where they could like paint and they could get messy, and that they could like, and also they could use to sort of collaborate and share resources. And so I talked to the main landowner here, which is Kamehameha Schools, done that way. And I asked if there was a space for that. Is there something that, would they be willing to give us a space for that? And I was lucky at that time because, Kakako, this is like what, like 2012? And so it wasn't the way it is now. It's like things were kind of just starting to come together. There was only like a few of us doing work out there. And they had this concrete storage facility, this warehouse here. And the guys that were in there, like, they wanted to get out of there. And so they said, we have this warehouse that's opening up. Like, you could potentially use it as a creative studio space. I went in there for a tour. It was a mess. There was 2 floors, but there was no stairs to the second floor. So they just put up ladders. So you just like climb to the second floor. There was no railings. It was just like, and so we thought, like, we'll just sign the lease and say yes and see what happens. Then we had an event, like I just emailed a bunch of people and said, like, meet me at this warehouse. Let me know your thoughts and if you want to be involved in being a part of this. And so we all met together there. And then I said, before it was a concrete storage facility, it was an auto mechanic shop. So there's different bays for different mechanics who work on different cars. And so I said, what we could do is we could just say, hey, you could have this one bay here, and and then you kind of like pay based on square footage. But we didn't want to be like landlords or anything, so I thought, what we do is like, it's a membership thing where you kind of pay based on the space you have, and it goes towards paying the overall rent. But then we're not going to try to like make money off of this. Like, we're going to pay just enough to sort of like pay for the rent and cover utilities and cover tax, etc. So we let everyone just come on board and just like, hey, okay, you can have this space, you can have this space, and then everyone just kind of started building. Over a period of a year, like, it kind of turned into like this like artist favela. Everyone just kind of built their own spaces. And it's still there to this day. We've had it since 2012, and I just negotiated an additional 3 years for that thing. So, it's nice to sort of like, and these are kind of things, same. It's like, hey, I have an idea, and don't be afraid to sort of figure out like what it would take to make it happen. Because we've never built one of these things before, these kinds of spaces. And we kind of like look to the community to sort of build it with us. And so from there we started, then going back to like, then we starting music schools. We started a music school, an art school, and a photography school that are free for kids within the community, as a way to give back. So this is our music school. Oh yeah, so, so, that's sort of like the general overall story behind Powwow and myself, and sort of like how we kind of got it from point A to point B. And then going back, it's like, I graduated with an illustration degree, but now I'm doing so many other things beyond that initial degree. I don't even do that much illustration anymore, to be honest. I don't even like to do that stuff. So, it's like, it's been an interesting sort of journey. And a lot of it really is from me just being lost and confused and not sure what I'm doing, but also accepting the fact that I should be. And that the fact that I am, it kind of opens up doors to try new things and try different things. So yeah, so, even going back to like my own personal artwork, like recently I was in Sardinia, and I was doing a project with Prana Dupour out there, and I arrived with the notion that I was going to paint this smaller wall. It was maybe the wall was about, I don't know, maybe like 12 feet tall. It was an easy one. I knew that I could do it maybe like in a few days. When I got there, the owner of the space told me that he really would want me to paint the side of the 3-story building like next to it. I was like, oh man, that's like way harder than I thought. But then I said, yeah, I'll try. The thing about me sort of doing those kinds of things is that I have like a fear of heights, which is weird to say because like I'm around lifts and I'm on lifts and I'm on scaffolding like all the time, unfortunately. And it always takes me a while to sort of like get used to being up high. And so I said, yeah, let's see what we could do and try to make it happen, knowing that I have a fear of heights and knowing that I don't like using lifts and all those things, even though I have like a lift license and stuff. And so I go up on that lift, and and I'm thinking that maybe I'll try to do something totally new that I haven't tried before. But then I don't consider like the texture of the wall, which is like mostly stucco, and that the paint in Italy tends to be more chalky. It's not liquid acrylics. It's like a chalk. Like when you use it all day long, and then you like wash your brushes in the bucket. Like after you take everything out, it's like sediment of like it's like 3 inches thick. So it's a totally different kind of paint too. And then I had like a week to do it. And in those situations where like, oh, like I don't know if I could do it or not. And then you go up there and you like see, and then when you finally do finish it, then it becomes more meaningful and impactful for yourself. The fact that you tried to do it, even though you had like a lot of different fears going in, and not much knowledge of how anything was done there, or the walls, or the paint, or anything. There was times when, like, I didn't want to continue just because there was parts of the wall where there's like a bunch of like, the roof came in on different parts, different awnings, and then if you're on a boom lift, then I can't paint the bottom part of the wall because the lift won't get me there. So then I have to then climb out of the lift and stand on the roof to paint the bottom part, which kind of sucks because then if you're afraid of heights, then you're like, that's when you're like, you could really fall. And I thought that maybe I could just like strap myself to the lift and then climb out, so then if I do fall, then at least the lift is carrying me. And maybe I can just hang there for a little while, I don't know, until someone finds me. But yeah, I was doing all that kind of stuff, and I would spend so much time just thinking about it. Like, should I climb out the lift? It's like a really bad idea. Because I took like a fall protection class too, which like is like, that's a really bad idea to do that, because then like this is what happens to you when you do that. And this is what happens to you like if like the safety equipment you're wearing is not like up to code, then like you pretty much like lose circulation in your groin, which kind of sucks too. So I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna do it. So but then like when you're done, then it works out. So like it's those things where it just. I think at the end what I want to say is just don't be afraid to be lost. Don't be afraid to do that. Like don't be afraid. And I think a lot of times when you do that is when sometimes your best work comes out.